So I know this first slide's not on your note sheet, but there is something I want you to remember about radicals. We are actually starting rational exponents, and so we're going to be doing a lot of breaking down of any type of radical, which is going to then take us into logarithms. And the big thing about this chapter, majority of the chapter, we're probably not going to have calculators, so you do have to realize you can do this stuff on your own. So just as a quick review, I want you to realize that you know 5 squared is 25. What you have to remember is when we have negative exponents, that means it's not happy. So it's 1 over 25, 1 over 5 squared, which is 25. One thing to remember is 5 to the 0. Anything to the 0 is a 1. Before we start this, one thing to remember is b to the 1/2 is the same as the square root of b. B to the cube is the cube root of b. And we're going to talk about what b to the 2/3 is. So that's what we're actually going to start in chapter 10. So here is the definition of b to any fraction where p and q are integers, with q being greater than 0, because you can never have a 0 on a fraction. B is a positive real number. Then b to the p over q is q root of b to the power of p, or q root of b inside to the power of p. So it doesn't matter if we do the cube root, or do any root first, then do p, or we do b to the p first and then take the root of that. So I know it's wordy, it's letters. Let's do an example and practice from there. So if you glance back at the notes before, there's 2 ways we can set up this problem. We can write it as 4. So we can write it as 4 root 16, because the 4 would come outside, parenthesis 3. Or you can write it 4 root 16 to the 3rd. So obviously, if you look at the top one, you'll see that I think I'd rather do the root first, making that easier to do in my head, and then cube it. If I try to do this, you have to take 16 3 times and then take the 4th root of that. So nobody wants to do that. So the 4th root of 16, you're thinking of a number that when you multiply it by itself 4 times come out to 16. So obviously it has to be a small number. It's 2. So then it's 2 to the 3rd, which is 8. 16 to the 3rd, I would be much more comfortable with a calculator. The 4th root of 4096, and then that's 8. But obviously that can't be done in your head. And remember, you're most likely not going to have a calculator. So let's look at 3 more examples of this. Okay, so example number 2, we need to be careful because the 25 is fine, except there's a negative exponent. So to start this problem, I'm going to write 1 over 25 negative 3/2, positive 3/2. 25 to the 3/2. At that point, then I need to realize what 3/2 is. That's 1 over 2 outside of a square. If I put a 2 up here, I don't need a 2 because that's what a square root is, to the 3rd. So now all I need to do is 1 over the square root of 25, which is 5 cubed, 1 over 125. Okay. If I look at the next one, you should almost be able to do this by yourself. Remember, the number on top of the exponent always stays on the outside. So it's going to be square root of 9, because that's really technically what 1/2 is if I pull out the 5. So now it's the square root of 9, or if you had a 2 here, but you should understand a 2 means square root. So square root of 9 to the 5th, 3 to the 5th, and that's a little high, but you could work that through. So 243. And then lastly, we have this one, and you just want to be careful, sorry, on yours, it's negative 9 to the 3/2. And so we want to look at this one, and we just want to be careful. That negative 9, that negative's not with the 9. It's not in parentheses. Remember, this is supposed to be positive numbers. So it's outside, which just means whatever we get as our answer, it's the opposite. So again, since there's a 2 on the bottom, that's the square root of 9 cubed. So now but there's a negative outside the front of it. Square root is 3 cubed. So now it's negative 27. Okay. So that's this is exponential form. These are in exponential form, and we're putting them into radical form or solving. Go ahead and take a second and do these two on your own. See if you get the same answer I do. Okay, hopefully you paused the video and tried them on your own. If not, 1/4 is simply the 4th root of 16. That's what it is. What number times itself 4 times gives me 16, and we've decided that's 2. Next one has a negative. So the first way I'm going to write this is 1/8 to the 1/3. I don't really like that. 1/8 to the 1/3, right? So that we know now it's a positive exponent. That then is just 1 over the cube root of 8. At this point, we should know that the cube root of 8, what number times itself gives you 8, 2. So my final answer is 1/2. The next part of the notes is now to take it from radical form and write it in exponential form. So all we have to remember is this is a to the 5th, b to the 3rd, c squared, all raised to the power of, since there's a 3 out here, it needs to come on the outside. And remember, the cube root of something is to the 1/3, not 3. At this point, they want it cleaned up. A to the 5/3, b, 3 times 1/3 is 3 times 1 over 3, which is 1. You don't need the 1. And c to the 2/3. So now that's written back in exponential form. So we are fine. And that's all they're looking for. Okay. You could probably do this one on your own, but we'll practice. So we're going to get x squared 8y to the negative 1, all raised to the 1/3 again. So x, I'm going to multiply them 2/3 over 8 to the 1/3, y to the negative 1/3. Okay. Everything looks good except that's a negative, so I want x to the 2/3, y to the 1/3 to come up. And since this is a number, I technically would want you to solve what the cube root of 8 is, since 8 to the 1/3 is the cube root. So I would want a 2 there instead. In case people don't know, 8, that's the cube root of 8, and then I want the 2. All right, I know we have 2 more problems. I'm going to leave them, and I'll go over them with you the next time. So I just want you to be comfortable with understanding what P over Q does to a radical, that is the Q root of B, all raised to the P. So I think you can understand that after doing that, and we'll practice that tomorrow. All right, thanks, bye.